I'm Pegah Moradi. I'm a PhD candidate in information science at Cornell University. Yeah, so I study automation in the workplace, so how new technologies are impacting the way that people do their jobs, impacting whether they have a job or not. A lot of what I do is related to frontline work, so how frontline workers are interacting with technology in their day-to-day jobs, and how it impacts how they interact with customers. So my dissertation work is on self-checkout in retail and how that type of technology is changing how cashiers are interacting with customers. So whereas before, cashiers would be going through a process of scanning items, putting them in the bag, talking one-on-one to a customer, now cashiers have to do a lot more problem-solving work. So they have to interact with customers when they have a problem at self-checkout or when they might suspect that the customer is stealing. And this type of work is really different from the work that they used to do before, even though they have the same role. Like they're still a cashier at the store, but now they have to do a lot more kind of rule enforcement work that they didn't have to before. So that's one area that I work in. And then more broadly, I study, surveillance, privacy at work, basically any context in which technology is touching the way that people do their everyday jobs. I'm really interested in creating work that can help people have better jobs down the line, higher quality jobs down the line. I work with frontline retail workers, and so oftentimes these jobs are increasingly precarious. They can be really challenging, both emotionally and socially. And so it's really important to me to work with policymakers or work with worker advocates to try to create a future where these jobs are high quality, well paying, and that people don't feel like they're in a precarious situation being in them. So I had started studying automation and job displacement as an undergrad student. That was like my thesis project. And what I was thinking about then was there was this big promise that AI was going to, get rid of all these jobs and so many people wouldn't have jobs and the world would be this remarkably different place. And I think after studying all this stuff a little bit more, I think I learned, oh, it's actually, not touching our lives in that way, but it's touching it in all these other different ways that we don't think about and that we don't necessarily immediately predict will happen. So I was literally at a grocery store using self-checkout when I was thinking about, this is an example of a technology that's kind of in the background that we don't think about. It's maybe not necessarily AI driven or this fancy sort of technology, but it's impacting my experience as a consumer. It's impacting the employee's experience doing their job. And and when I was looking into that, there were just all of these other areas in which things kind of started to come into play, where all these different technologies were coming in. What draws me to this context specifically is everybody goes to the grocery store, everybody has used self-checkout, everybody's had some experience with it, and I think also everybody has thoughts on it. So they have some sort of lived experience that they draw from. And so even when I talk to people who don't work in technology or don't work in policy, they have some idea of this is impacting the way that I live my daily life. But often they don't think about what that means for the workers that are at the store. So it was really important for me to kind of shine a light on what is happening to the people who are still doing these jobs. What really piques my interest is all these little ways that people are working around technology and the ways that people are kind of trying to circumvent it in some ways or use it in ways that aren't necessarily what was intended. I think of a lot of instances where people use technology as a form of resistance to try to shift power dynamics in a way that empowers them. So yeah, I'm really interested in little ways that people kind of use technology to form connections in ways that are completely unintended. And it just kind of goes to show you the forms of human creativity that kind of persist, even when these technological systems are maybe trying to set more rigid rules on the way that we interact with each other. We still kind of find ways to get around those rules and wiggle our way around.